My name is Lynne Harford. I am a registered social worker with the Social Work Consulting Group. I'm the Director of Pediatrics and a clinical supervisor. We are one branch of the Functionability family alongside our partners Entwistle Power Occupational Therapy. And with this whole COVID-19 crisis, we felt that it was important to put together a series of webinars that touched upon a couple of different topics that we thought would be helpful for some of our clients and their friends and families. So today, we're actually going to be talking about how children and adolescents are responding to the COVID-19 crisis. And today I have my guest and colleague, Emma Fogel. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So Emma is she heads up our MindCALM program within the Social Work Consulting Group. And Emma, I'm wondering if you could just take a moment first and foremost to talk a little bit about what MindCALM is.
So MindCALM was a program that myself and Dina Ginsburg, we co-developed in 2017. And it's actually a private counseling program within the Social Work Consulting Group that specializes with working with children, youth, and families in counseling, right? Whether that means managing mood, stress, anxiety, interpersonal relationships, we tackle it all.
Amazing. And so I guess with this whole COVID-19 pandemic, how do we talk to kids about this without actually instilling fear in them?
So it's a great question, and it's a couple weeks in, right? So even younger kids, they've heard a lot about COVID, and the word virus is being used a lot. So it's important when we're talking to kids to ask questions first, right? What do they know? Because it's important for us to be able to clarify and hear, are they hearing information that's incorrect, right? Mm-hmm. So that we can listen to them and correct some of their questions. Like, is it true that everyone who gets COVID is going to die? No, right? Is it true that if I go outside, I can catch it in the air, right? Is it true that if I touch a park bench, what will happen to me? So these are all questions that we can correct and provide factual information with of how we can stay safe. And we need to focus on kind of emphasizing actionable practices of how we can avoid or prevent ourselves from getting COVID. So things that these kids can do: hand hygiene, not going outside as often, right? If not necessarily going to the park. If we're walking our dogs outside and we see people coming, let's play a game and switch to the other side, right? So these are small things that they can do, and they can feel like they are protecting themselves. But I think it's also really important when we are educating about COVID is working with the message that this too is going to pass.
Right.
We need to have hope, and we need to be optimistic, right? So we're not thinking, oh my God, we're instilling in these kids that the world is going to end. So the way that I'm talking about it with a lot of the parents that I'm working with is using the analogy of getting on a bike. And you teach yourself, right? When you're teaching a child how to bike, it can feel really tough, and we feel it in our thighs, and it hurts, and it's difficult. But once we get down the other side, it will be okay, right? Yeah. So this is a tough hill. We're all climbing up it together, but it will end. Now, of course, we are not all experts. We're not all medical professionals, so we don't necessarily have all of the information. So there are so many resources out there now, especially that are specifically targeted at providing information to youth that you can access with your kids. And now,
okay.
So I provided some.
Okay, let me just see if I can pull those up.
Okay.
There, I think we have them there. Can you see them?
Yes. So both of these are governmental websites in North America that provide specific information directed at kids and adolescents and answering some questions, because we know there's new information coming at us every day. It's constantly changing, and they update every day. So they're really good resources for families.
That's great. I think this is really helpful for people to be able to look into that for sure. And so when we think of COVID, how is it that you're able to determine whether or not your child or your adolescent is too stressed with this? So
I think it's really important for us all to kind of lay it out on the table that everyone is really stressed right now. We're stressed emotionally, we're stressed physically, we're stressed cognitively, and we're also stressed financially, right? So we are feeling it, our kids are feeling it too. But the message of stress is something that I talk about a lot when I give presentations and trainings to schools and to camps and to parent groups, because it's important that we recognize what is a developmentally appropriate symptom of stress when we're talking about kids, right? And we're talking about adolescents as well. So what we know when we're talking about young people is that their prefrontal cortexes are far from developed, right? So the way that they're going to express stress is going to be largely behavioral, and it's going to be largely physiological, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to see things like more frequent mood swings. You're going to see more acting out, right? We're at home with our families, siblings are at home. It's very common, I imagine, that there's lots more siblings fighting amongst each other. You're also going to see changes in sleep, right? Even adolescents, I'm working with a lot of them now that have started having nightmares again, right? Or even bedwetting. Even if this is something that your child has stopped, it may start again. You may notice that kids are eating more or less than normal. You may notice that they're a little more withdrawn, right? We're all at home. There's going to be a lot of time spent in their room, right? Kind of isolating by themselves. When we're talking about younger children, you may see some regressive behaviors like thumb sucking, right? Or even baby talk, right? And that's kind of their signal to you that they really need to be soothed by an adult. And then, of course, you might get the common complaints. I have a tummy ache, my throat hurts, oh my God, I have COVID, I feel like I can't breathe, right? These are all, I want to say this again, developmentally appropriate symptoms of stress in young people, right? But now, right, because this really is a crisis, I do think it's important that we talk about some of the verbal things that you're going to hear from your kids, younger kids, and your adolescents. So what I'm noticing, and just when I've kind of asked around in my caseload, a lot of the younger kids are very concerned about being contaminated.
Mm-hmm.
They're very worried that when they go outside, they're going to catch the virus, right? Or really questions that we're all asking, which is they're worried about other people, right? Am I ever going to go back to school? Are my friends going to make me sick? If I see my grandparents, am I going to make them sick? So it's a lot of those questions about contamination.
Okay.
Adolescents, it's going to come out as a little more severe. So a lot of kids are having some pretty significant catastrophic thinking. And I'll get to this later of why this is so important. But you're going to have kids saying, you know, I'm never going to get to see my friends again, right? Or I'm never going to get my license, or my braces are never going to come off. Or even, you know, I'll go as far as I've heard a couple kids say that have been pretty even-keeled, pretty regulated kids say things like, I'm going to kill myself if I don't get to see my friends, right? Because they are truly stressed and overwhelmed that they are disconnected from their friends. Social connectivity in adolescence is everything.
Absolutely.
And so a part of what is also going on with adolescents is they are grieving, right? They're grieving for so many missed impending opportunities for them. They're grieving for the potential of camp, right? Is it going to happen or not? Or summer trips. They're grieving for graduation. Are they going to have a ceremony? They're grieving for school dances, for dance competitions, for hockey competitions, right? Hockey tournaments, right? These are all things that for kids are everything. It's their chance.
whole world has changed.
Exactly, right? So part of that is that these kids are they are grieving, and it's important for us as the adults and as parents to validate that, right? The incredible loss that a lot of these young people are having that are true milestones in their high school career, right? So these are all pieces that they are so stressed, and this is some of the communication that if you haven't heard it, you will.
So I imagine, I mean, not only are kids and adolescents stressed, but, you know, I know all of us are stressed, and we are having our own anxiety and our own worry. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of parents out there wondering, like, am I going to have enough money to put, you know, food on the table? Are we going to be able to pay our mortgage? You know, someone's been laid off from work. So these are all very real worries that adults are having. And so as adults having these worries, how does they then support their kids and manage their kids' symptoms of anxiety and worry?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the way that I'm phrasing things is that this is a really strange time that all of us really feel so isolated, so lonely. Even in our own homes with our families, it can actually be quite a lonely experience. but it's strangely connective because we are all going through this together. And the way I wanted to start with that is because it's a real empathy piece that you can sit down with your kids, and it is okay because we are in a crisis to say, this is really hard for me too. And I know and validate the worries and fears that your kids are having, right? The roller coaster of emotions and the pressures that are coming, right? And the missing social connectivity, missing going outside, smelling fresh air, right? These are all pieces that we all fear, right? But kind of through that, in our own anxieties, everything that I'm recommending for kids, I need to recommend for myself too. Focus on what we can do. Focus on what we can control. And also, we need to be gentle with ourselves, right? I think a lot of parents, they are, wanting to really ensure that their kids are okay, right?
Yeah.
But what comes and takes a toll is kind of how we're treating ourselves. And we need to make sure that we are also being kind to ourselves, squeezing in that 15-minute exercise just to regulate and cool down, having 15 minutes, even if you have to close the bathroom door, to breathe, to FaceTime a friend, so that you're making sure that you charge your own battery so that you can remain the voice of reason and you can remain the voice of calm.
Absolutely. I think that the piece around self-compassion and not judging sort of what you can and cannot do through this time is so, so important, because life has been turned upside down for kids and families.
It has.
Through all of this.
And just to add to that, right? So when we're talking about adolescents that are constantly on the phone, right? I mean, younger kids too, but really adolescents that are constantly on the phone, it's important for us to talk about the conversations that we are having in and out of the home, right? Because a lot of my teens who are TikToking and Snapchatting and in big Zoom calls and big Facebook, whatever conversations, a lot of these conversations are actually creating more panic, right? Because the way that we can control our own anxieties and our own conversations in the home, we don't know how other homes are managing this, right? And sometimes that comes out through our kids' conversations.
Absolutely.
So part of this, which is what I'm also starting to recommend, is we need to empower our kids to put in those boundaries, right? And encourage other kids, right? That when you are talking, right? Is it helpful to be focusing on the panic? Is it helpful to be focusing on COVID? Or are some of these conversations, they're supposed to distract us and make us laugh? And, the TikTok dances, I'm so for it, right? Because
they're awesome.
They're awesome. And it can distract us, keep us silly, keep us laughing, get the oxytocin flowing, and make us feel a little happier. And that's what we really want to be encouraging, both in the conversations that we have with our families, but also the conversations that our kids are having outside of the home.
Absolutely. And I know so much of what's changed right now is, most kids aren't in school. Parents are not working. Everybody is under the same roof. And, how do we sort of kind of work through these challenging times in terms of keeping our kids busy, maintaining some sort of structure and routine? Do you have any sort of recommendations for that?
Yes. So we've heard it time and time again, routine is essential. And I have to say, I'm so impressed with the families that I work with, because they really have put this into practice, where they have regular meal times, a portion of the morning that has self-directed learning or play that allows parents that are working from home to have a little bit of space. And I'll get to some more strategies around that. Some exercise, whether it's independently or going for a walk as a family or a jog as a family, and then regular hygiene. But I want to note that in this routine, I want to stress how important it is that it's okay to slow it down. So I was speaking today with a university student, and she's a very high achiever, and she's kind of in this in-between point of the exam period and not really knowing what's happening with exams. And she was talking to me and saying, I didn't wake up at the regular time today, so my study schedule is off. And it's okay to slow things down. It's okay for your kids to have longer bath times. It's okay for your teenagers to sleep in a little later, right? It's okay if your kids go to bed a little later because you're having a family movie night or a game night, right? It is a difficult time that it can be, if we reframe it as a time where we all slow things down, take a breath, maintain the routine, but also enjoy each other and be a little gentler to each other with the routine. But in terms of routine, I think it's important for us to talk about some differences between if you have younger children and if you have older children, what you can do around that. So younger children, I think it's really important that you involve them in the everyday activities of how the house runs, right? So something that I'm recommending is if you're ordering groceries, you can include your younger kids in the grocery shopping online, include them in dinner prep, include them in setting the table, right? Or separating laundry by color. It can almost encourage this feeling of we're really all a team and we need to be working together, and it gives the younger kids an activity for a little.
Absolutely.
Right? I think something also that's a really great idea is to have a lot of self-directed play activities available for the kids, right? You have art supplies available, you have Lego sets available, dolls, blocks, basketballs, or boondoggle, and you have it available, right? And you say that, let's say your kids are into art and you say, I want you to make me 3 pieces and I want you to look at the clock and come back to me at that time, right? That can give their kids a little bit of structure, a little bit of autonomy. It allows you to work from home, hopefully a little bit undisturbed, right? And then it can also give your kids the opportunity to perform, right? To show you what they've created and make them feel a little bit accomplished about what they did that day.
Absolutely.
Older kids, it's a little different. So
they just want to be on their screens, right, Emma?
They just want to be on their screens. So a part of this is also during this time, they can be on their screens, right?
Yeah.
Not all day. Hopefully some of your kids, I'm going to say, have a little bit of school work to do. And we're going to talk about school a little bit later. But hopefully, you can allow them, if they're watching Netflix, they can have a little bit of time to watch Netflix. If they're FaceTiming with their friends, it makes them feel connected, but also to stress the message that we are all in this together, right? They can help load the dishwasher. They should be making their beds. Encourage them to get out of their PJs. Falling back to the younger kids, I have a niece that she is dressing up in Halloween costumes every day. That's fine. Right?
How fun is that?
Whatever makes you happy that day and kind of brings a little bit of joy. And for teenagers, let's get them out of their PJs. They don't need to wear jeans, but just to feel a little more productive, and hygiene is good during times like these. So we want to encourage that. But I've heard of this acronym that I'm using with a lot of my teens and preteens that I think is a great way to kind of go about our days. And the acronym is MAPS. Okay, so you want to be achieving this acronym almost every day. So the acronym stands for Mastery, Altruism, Pleasure, and Silence. So mastery is doing something, the way I communicate this to teens is do something once a day that just makes you feel like a boss, right? Whether that means you cleaned out your closet, whether that means you do a 10-minute ab series, or maybe you did a little bit of work, right? Or you helped your mother make dinner. That is something that you can feel productive in, right? That you have accomplished. It feels good. Altruism, doing something for someone else, calling a grandparent or checking in on an elderly neighbor, seeing if you can get anything for them at the grocery store or order anything from them. Doing something good for other people makes us feel good. And we need some good in the world right now. Pleasure. So just doing something that they like. And I'm going to say, so that could be truly video gaming. Maintaining a sense of normalcy is important. And now we don't want these kids to be video gaming for the entire afternoon, but it's also a way, especially I'm finding with my boys, they're playing with their friends, right? There is the opportunity for them to communicate with their friends, but also baking, right? Doing TikToks, doing your nails, right? My nails don't look so great. That could be a fun activity to be doing. So just doing something that's fun. And silence. Now this I'm finding this is a hard one, especially for our young kids that do grow up on screens. So this is a time, usually I'd like it to be before the day starts or when the day ends, when the phone is away, the computer is away, and it can just be a time to think, right? And if you don't want to think, or if that is actually too much, it can simply be a time to breathe. And if you do feel like thinking, this can be a time where you can think about, what are some things that I'm grateful for? Or what's a good thing that happened today? I like the dinner that mom made, right? Or I got a free throw into the backyard. And that's a nice way that can kind of shift our thinking to be a little more positive, because we all know our thoughts get really anxious at night. And it's a way that we can kind of concentrate and streamline. And it's a practice that for younger kids, have those conversations with your kids at bedtime, right? Like, what did you like today? What felt good? That send your kids into a little bit of a softer sleep.
Yeah, and I definitely think COVID-19 is allowing all of us to kind of look at this piece of gratitude, right? Like, in those small moments, what are the things that we're feeling most grateful for? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I guess the other thing that's really coming up for so many families, I mean, as I said earlier, school is out, and kids are at home, and there's this certainly, I think, a need probably on the part of parents and on kids to kind of want to stay engaged in school. And there's fear about maybe not getting their year, and all these kinds of worries are coming up. So what kinds of recommendations do you have for families about sort of dealing with the whole issue of school right now?
It's probably my biggest question that I'm asked so far. And I do want to go about this in two ways. So I spoke to many teachers and educators about their piece, and then I'm going to do my piece as a social worker. So when we're talking about the school piece from educators, it's really important, and I feel this way too, that parents don't feel pressured to be delivering this curriculum. You're not teachers, unless you are, you're parents, right? And it's important that you don't get stressed about the curriculum, because your kids are going to feel that stress. And we know for so many years that if your kids are feeling stressed, they're not going to be processing, they're not going to be digesting. It's not going to be an overall fantastic learning experience, right? So there are lots of resources that are available, lots of virtual math resources online, like Raz Kids, or there's Epic Books for younger kids, lots of audio books that can fit into the curriculum or somewhat fit into the curriculum that I recommend. You can also, if younger kids are given activities, if they have them, what you can do at the dinner table at lunchtime is ask them to reflect or summarize what they've learned that day, as opposed to kind of hammering home to see if they followed everything from 9 to 3 or 9 to 12, right? It's just about seeing if they digested any bit of that information and retained it. For older grades, I think you would hope that they're going to be a little more self-directed in their learning as it is, right? But what I am hearing across the board is a couple school boards haven't really been able to give a ton of information. So really what I keep coming back to is we are all going through this together. So your kids are not going to be falling behind any more than anyone else. And you would hope that the school board, what is likely going to happen are some curriculum adjustments for everyone going forward. So that's kind of my thoughts. But for me, I think there is a lot left to know, and we really do have to take things day by day. Sometimes I say hour by hour.
Moment by moment.
Moment by moment, right? So I think this can be a time to connect, right? I saw something on Instagram where it's, you want your children to be remembering this time, as a time where you were reading a lot, walking together a lot, watching funny movies together, laughing together, doing yoga together, right? And remember, you can do the self-directed play, because we do actually have to do a little bit of work. We can't just be hanging out all day. I recognize that. But the school piece will figure itself out, because all of our kids are experiencing this together, right? So just kind of coming back to that, taking a breath, making sure that we're keeping our cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I've been having the conversations to say there's a lot of very skilled, smart adults out there who are making lots of decisions about what this is going to look like in the days, months, weeks ahead, right? And that people are taking care of it. And until which point, you just kind of take it moment by moment.
Exactly.
So I guess in kind of wrapping up our conversation today, I mean, it's always great to kind of come away with like a little tool or something that kids might be able to use to kind of manage some of this anxiety. Do you have kind of like a takeaway that you could offer to the kids and families out there?
Absolutely. So I always ask, one of the first things I ask at the end of my sessions, especially with kids and adolescents, that I go, do you know how to breathe? And everyone's like, yeah, I know how to breathe. And I'm like, do you actually know how to breathe? because breathing is something I'm noticing, especially in times of crisis, I think we're forgetting to do. So what I do is I start off by asking kids, do you prefer pizza or cookies? Okay. They choose. I then ask them, what do they prefer on their pizza, right? I like mushrooms. I like onions. This is actually, I adapted this from a Leanna Lowenstein strategy that she taught me how to do cookie breathing, right? So what we do is we include that visual. You imagine a fresh, steaming hot piece of pizza or cookie. And what do we do when it's really hot? This is for younger kids. We smell it in and we blow on it. Okay. The visual paired with the breathing, kids love it. And it actually teaches them how to breathe and slow it down, getting that real good regulation and oxygen through their bodies to regulate their organs, to slow down their fight, flight, or freeze, right? So that we can feel a little calmer. Teenagers don't always like pizza breathing. They think it's a little silly. So I just do belly breathing, right? Where I have them put their hand on their belly so that they feel their bodies filling up with air and slowing down. And the best part about both of these strategies is that nobody needs to know that you're doing it, right?
Correct.
So that is big. Let's breathe. Everyone needs to breathe all day, every day. And then another strategy, which I find to be super helpful, is grounding. So it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Name 5 things you can see, anything as simple as the fork on the plate, the pencil over there. 4 things you can hear. I can hear mommy's voice. I can hear the dog. Name 3 things you can touch. My hair. I can touch mommy's shoulder. 2 things you can smell. The weird neighbor maybe. And cookies. And 1 thing you can taste. My breakfast, right? You're activating all of your senses to kind of streamline and orient themselves to the present, take away some of that anxiety or the panic or frenzied thoughts, and ground ourselves. And, some other basic strategies like listening to music, watching a comedy special together, playing board games, reading. I read, you don't even need to just be reading basically kids' books. You can challenge your younger kids and read higher level books with them. Get into Harry Potter if you haven't already, right? Like, we have the time and you can just read and explore things together. Something that I'm seeing a lot of families doing is they keep a jar or on the bulletin board in the kitchen. You can start posting Post-it notes, right? Of things that are positive that happened in the day, so that when you are having those moments that we are inevitably all going to have, when things do feel overwhelming and we're having a bad day or a bad moment, you can have that visual reminder that yesterday you got in a free throw in the backyard, or you got up on a 2-wheeler for the first time, or you had a really great Zoom call with your friends, right? We need those visual reminders to help ground us and remind us that this too shall pass. And each day is different, and we will all get through this.
Amazing. Emma, that has just been so helpful. And I can only imagine that so many people out there are going to just take away so much from the information that you've shared, the guidance, the tips, the strategies. Is there any final thoughts, anything else that you wanted to share before we sort of close for today?
I just want to remind everyone again that we really are all going through this together, and it's important for us to remind ourselves just to be kind to one another, to breathe, being grateful. And in doing that, it kind of ensures that our mental health, right, it's going to go up and down, but we have some tools, we have a support system, and just to access them if we need it, and we can do it.
Wonderful. Well, I just want to say on behalf of the Social Work Consulting Group, Functionability, and Whistle Power Occupational Therapy, we just really want to wish you all the best. We're thinking about you and your family, and we're hoping that you stay strong, you stay healthy, and you stay safe as we continue to move through this crisis. And we'll be looking forward to seeing you some point into the future. Take care, everyone, and thanks again, Emma.
Thank you.